the Iron Cross, a decoration that has become indelibly linked with the German military throughout 2 world wars. This distinguished medal was bestowed upon service members who demonstrated exceptional gallantry or performed meritorious service during operations against enemy forces. Given the strict prohibition against women serving in combat units within the German military, the vast majority of these decorations were naturally awarded to men. However, what many find astonishing is that during the Second World War, approximately 40 women actually received this prestigious decoration under the exact same criteria applied to their male counterparts for genuine battlefield heroism and exceptional courage under fire. The majority of these remarkable female recipients were army nurses who earned their Iron Crosses through extraordinary acts of self-sacrifice, rescuing wounded soldiers while under direct enemy fire, or heroically saving patients during devastating air raids and relentless artillery bombardments. Among the awardees were also 2 celebrated female test pilots who pushed the boundaries of aviation, Melita Countess von Stauffenberg and the legendary Hannah Reich. But perhaps the most fascinating cases are those of approximately half a dozen Iron Crosses that were awarded to women who actually took up arms against the enemy and fought shoulder to shoulder with male soldiers in active combat situations. During the Second World War, 500,000 women served within the German armed forces in various capacities. They fulfilled crucial roles as nurses, communications specialists, clerical staff, and headquarters personnel. Some served in what were called flak helper positions, not operating the actual anti-aircraft guns themselves, but managing the sophisticated direction-finding equipment, radar systems, and occasionally transporting ammunition to gun positions under challenging conditions. Nazi Germany's military doctrine firmly maintained that the front lines were absolutely no place for women, a stark contrast to the Soviet Union, which deployed all-female sniper teams, complete fighter and bomber squadrons, and anti-aircraft batteries staffed entirely by women soldiers. Britain also fielded all-female anti-aircraft units during the war, along with female pilots serving in non-combat air transport roles. The Americans followed suit with similar programs, as did numerous other Allied nations, where millions of women proudly served in uniform, making invaluable contributions to the war effort. As crushing defeat loomed ever larger for Nazi Germany during the desperate first months of 1945, the long-standing prohibition on women serving in combat roles was cautiously relaxed to some degree. In this extraordinary period, some women actually received formal arms training and were prepared for potential combat situations. Every single Iron Cross awarded to German women for combat actions was earned during the final chaotic months of the war in Europe, and all of them were earned on the brutal Eastern Front as the Soviet Red Army swept relentlessly into German territory. The Iron Cross itself was an ancient award with roots extending far beyond the Third Reich or even the unified German state. As a military decoration, it dates back to 1813, long before Germany existed as a unified nation. Originally issued by the Kingdom of Prussia, it was groundbreaking in being an award available to both officers and enlisted men alike. The design, simple yet strikingly distinctive, underwent remarkably little alteration from its inception through its reissue under Adolf Hitler in 1939. This historical continuity explains why all World War II Iron Crosses bear the date 1939 stamped upon them, regardless of when the actual award was presented to the recipient. By the Second World War, the Iron Cross had evolved into a sophisticated system consisting of several distinct grades, each featuring different versions and designs of the cross itself. The Iron Cross Second Class stood as the lowest tier. An astounding 4.5 million of these were awarded during World War II. Recipients wore the full medal version only on the first day after receiving the award and during full dress uniform occasions. Thereafter, only the distinctive ribbon was worn, threaded through the second buttonhole of the service tunic. The Iron Cross First Class represented the next level of recognition, awarded approximately 300,000 times throughout the conflict, including twice to women combatants. This version was displayed as a badge, worn prominently on the left breast pocket. The Knight's Cross occupied the next tier and was by far the most famous level. Worn suspended around the neck on a ribbon, it stands in stark contrast to the erroneous impression perpetuated by countless films and modern computer games, which frequently depict German officers habitually wearing the Knight's Cross. In reality, this was an exceptionally rare and illustrious award, equivalent in prestige and status to the American Medal of Honor or the British Victoria Cross. It was bestowed in remarkably small numbers. Just over 7,000 were awarded during the entire war. Because many distinguished recipients earned more than one Knight's Cross through repeated acts of extraordinary heroism, special devices were designed to be affixed to the medal to indicate multiple awards. The Knight's Cross with oak leaves indicated 2 awards. With oak leaves and swords signified 3 awards. With oak leaves, swords and diamonds represented 4 Knight's Crosses. The rarest variation, the Knight's Cross with golden oak leaves, swords and diamonds, was reserved for 5 awards. This ultimate level was awarded only once during the entire war to the legendary Stuka dive bomber pilot Hans Ulrich Rudel, who became the most decorated German serviceman of the conflict. The Grand Cross of the Iron Cross stood even above the Knight's Cross. Originally founded in 1813 and subsequently resurrected by the Nazi regime, the Grand Cross was also awarded only once during World War II to Hermann Göring, the Commander-in-Chief of the German Air Force Luftwaffe. Regarding female recipients of the Iron Cross, surviving records remain frustratingly incomplete. Due to the absolute chaos and confusion that characterized the final months of the war, combined with the systematic destruction of documents during Germany's collapse, a substantial amount of material has been irretrievably lost to history. However, several specific combat actions involving women do stand out prominently from the fragmentary records and can be reconstructed with reasonable accuracy. By early February 1945, the Soviet advance westward had reached the Oder River, where the Red Army temporarily halted to consolidate the extraordinary gains it had achieved during 3 weeks of brutal fighting through Poland and East Prussia. The western bank of the Oder River was defended by a desperate hodgepodge collection of worn-out infantry divisions, panzer grenadier units, and depleted panzer divisions, supplemented by a diverse array of emergency formations. These included Volkssturm, Home Guard, units hastily assembled from older men and young boys, along with Hitler Youth members drawn from towns scattered along the river's western bank. While the Red Army was regrouping and resupplying for the final apocalyptic drive on Berlin, Soviet forces continued conducting aggressive local operations and maintained strong reconnaissance patrol activities along the river line. Fürstenberg was one such river town that came under immediate threat during this period. On April 2nd, 1945, Soviet troops successfully crossed the Oder to the north near Aurich and pushed forcefully into the Ziltendorfer Valley. The following day, April 3rd, German engineers managed to blow up the crucial 600-metre-long bridge at Fürstenberg in the nick of time, preventing a direct Soviet crossing at the town itself. The young pioneer who was killed while setting off the demolition charges, Eustachius Jürgensen, was subsequently awarded the Knight's Cross posthumously for his selfless heroism and supreme sacrifice. Red Army forces managed to cross the Oder on April 3rd at a point 1.5 kilometres south of the town, near Liebus. However, fierce and determined German resistance successfully prevented the Soviets from unifying their 2 separate bridgeheads, which would have isolated and inevitably led to the capture of Fürstenberg. Commanding the desperate defence in the town was Major Kedzin of the 98th Grenadier Regiment. Among the defending forces was a female signals operator named Erna Herzekorn. During the intense fighting that raged around the town's perimeter, Herzekorn, entirely on her own initiative and without orders, armed herself with a rifle. Leaving her communications post, which was already under direct enemy fire, she boldly gathered together a group of teenage Hitler Youth boys who were equipped with rifles and Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons. Herzekorn personally led this improvised battle group forward to reoccupy a village on Fürstenberg's perimeter that had been evacuated earlier during the confused fighting, deploying her young soldiers into proper defensive positions with tactical skill. It appears that Herzekorn and her dozen Hitler Youth fighters managed to hold the contested village for a considerable period before being relieved by regular German infantry troops. On March 5, 1945, Erna Herzekorn, as documented in surviving film footage, was formally awarded the Iron Cross Second Class for her exceptional leadership and conspicuous courage under fire. One of the most dramatic and well-documented examples of a woman entering active combat in 1945 occurred at the town of Greifenhagen on March 12th during a ferocious Soviet tank assault. Number 4. Battery of Heavy Flak Abteilung, Detachment. 326 of the Luftwaffe had been urgently retasked from anti-aircraft duties to anti-tank defence. The battery's 88mm guns had already proven themselves to be devastatingly effective tank destroyers on multiple war fronts across Europe and North Africa. The unit had been rapidly deployed forward from Berlin and had positioned 2 guns at Messerin and 4 defending Greifenhagen itself. In command of one of these formidable 88mm guns was Sergeant Herbert Junger, whose weapon covered a critical road approach southeast of the town 30-year-old Hedwig Kurtel's husband, served as one of Junger's gun crew members, and she herself had volunteered to serve as a Luftwaffe flak helper in a support capacity. When Soviet T-34 tanks suddenly advanced on the gun position and the area came under intense enemy fire, Kurtel made an extraordinary decision. She immediately left her assigned post, grabbed a bicycle and rode directly toward the embattled gun position through incoming fire. Upon arrival, she began tending to wounded crew members and hauling heavy ammunition shells under continuous heavy fire, making repeated dangerous trips back and forth as Sergeant Junger kept the 88 in constant action, systematically engaging and destroying the advancing Soviet armour. As gun crew members were progressively wounded during the prolonged engagement, Kurtel would quickly administer first aid to stabilise them before resuming her perilous runs under fire to collect more ammunition shells for the gun. During Kurtel's time at the forward gun position, the German gun crew managed to knock out 7 Soviet T-34 tanks using the 88mm gun. As the fighting closed to point-blank range, 2 additional Soviet tanks were destroyed by Panzerfaust anti-tank rockets. Several crew members suffered serious wounds during the extended action, and Kurtel steadfastly continued performing her self-appointed duties until she herself was wounded by enemy shrapnel and had to be evacuated to a field hospital. Sergeant Junger heroically kept his 88 in action until the following day, accounting for a remarkable total of 13 destroyed tanks. For this extraordinary feat, he was awarded the prestigious Knight's Cross Hedwig Kurtel, received the Iron Cross Second Class, along with the Wound Badge in black, for her exceptional bravery and devotion to duty. Unfortunately for military historians, there isn't substantial surviving detail regarding the stories of other women who were awarded the Iron Cross during the final desperate weeks of the war for combat actions. In most cases, only citation dates survive, perhaps accompanied by a single sentence briefly describing what transpired during the action that earned the decoration. The detailed examples of Erna Herzekorn and Hedwig Kurtel provide valuable insight into the remarkable capabilities of women volunteers when thrust into combat situations on the Eastern Front during 1945, and illuminate the truly unusual and desperate circumstances that led them to receive Germany's most iconic award for bravery in battle. These Extraordinary women, nurses, signals operators and civilian volunteers, demonstrated that courage under fire knows no gender. In the final chaotic months of World War II, when Nazi Germany's rigid doctrines crumbled under the weight of impending defeat, these women stepped forward and earned their place in military history. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and share this story to ensure these remarkable acts of courage are not forgotten by history.